talking to Dr. Betty Martin, and she's had her hands on people professionally for 40 years. First as a chiropractor, and then she retired from that practice and then became a certified surrogate partner, sacred, intimate, and somatic sex educator. She's had explorations in somatic-based therapy, and her practices informed her creation of the framework, the Wheel of Consent. So welcome, Dr. Betty Martin.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this. So what is a surrogate partner? Or what was that?
Never heard
of it. Oh, you haven't? Okay. A surrogate partner is back in the 60s and 70s when Masters and Johnson, who were big sex therapists in the US, they developed a program of exercises and things for a couple to do. But if you were single and didn't have a partner to practice these exercises with, you needed a practice partner. And so that was a surrogate. So a surrogate works in a triad with the therapist and the client and the surrogate. So all three of them are talking to each other. And the therapist is supporting the client in whatever their needs are, and the surrogate is doing the exercises and engaging with the client. So it might be as simple as teaching someone how to hold hands and cuddle, teaching people how to groom themselves, how to go on a date. It can be some of it can be naked and some of it can be sexual. I think most people think that a surrogate partner or a sex surrogate is there to have sex with you. And that does happen once in a while, but it's not the biggest part of it. The biggest part of it is teaching you, the client, how to notice that you have a body, how to enjoy your body, how to relax in your body, how to relax with another person's body. All those things, most of what you need to learn for great sex is learned before you ever get your clothes off.
Yeah.
So all these fundamental skills of relaxing and noticing what you want, noticing what you don't want, communicating what you want, touch that is not particularly sexual, but can be comforting or intimate feeling. So that's what a surrogate partner does.
Wow.
That sounds like something extremely intimate and very requiring a really deep body awareness and boundary awareness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And most of my work was as a sacred intimate, which is kind of like a surrogate, except without the therapist. So I would guide people through intimate and erotic experiences so that they could learn about themselves. And sometimes those were sexy experiences and sometimes they were not. Just depend on what the client needs. But I always felt like my work was surrogate-like, even though I wasn't necessarily working with a therapist.
And
supporting the client to have their discoveries and their ahas and be with their challenges and learn about themselves. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great to work. Yeah, I really loved it.
Are you still doing that?
No.
Yeah. But I assume that's informed the Wheel of Consent to a great extent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was having my hands on many, many people, as you said, first as a chiropractor for 30 years, and then later as a sex worker and sacred intimate. It helped me notice that there's some different dynamics at play in touching each other, and that what gave rise to the Wheel of Consent. Yeah.
Right. So in these times we're in right now, there's a lot going on with coercion and consent
and boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, what do you see?
I wouldn't say that in this world we are right now. I think there has always been a lot going on with coercion and taking advantage of people and exploiting people, whether in the bedroom or in the in the farm field, or, people, we humans have always exploited each other and used each other and coerced each other and treated each other really horribly and also really well. So I don't think there's anything new about today, except perhaps that there's more. It does seem that we're becoming more and more aware of the need for consent and agreement about what we do with each other, and being empowered to have choices about what happens to us and what we do. That if there's anything happening around the consent conversation, I think it's actually getting better, because even if, obviously things happen without consent all the time, but at least now there's conversation about the fact that, that's not really okay, you need to figure that out.
Yeah.
Whereas, 30, 40 years ago, there was no such, the marital rape was still legal in a number of states in the US. So like, what kind of thinking allows for that? So the thinking, I think the public conversation about consent is a really great thing. Yeah. And it's starting to be included in sex education for young people. So I think we've come a long way, and we have a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's really important to talk about that we are allowed to change our minds.
Yes.
We can give the consent and then withdraw it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Bodily autonomy and autonomy in so many other ways, and being
Who
aware.
knew? Yeah.
Come again?
Yeah. I said, who knew?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean I can choose what you do to me? That's a whole new concept to many people. And in working with couples, which I did a lot, I was surprised to see how often somebody would say, well, I they wanted it, so it didn't occur to me that it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
Because, well, they're doing this thing to me, and I guess I'm supposed to like it. So what's wrong with me? Why don't I like it?
Yeah.
Which, of course, is a backwards question.
Wow.
The question is not, why don't I like this? The question is, what is it that actually does sound good? And can I ask for that instead?
And why would someone else think that it was okay to step over my boundaries in that way? How do I uphold my boundaries?
Yeah.
What does that feel like in the body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, there's not a terrible thing happening, but we're rolling around, playing, making out, and you're doing stuff that it's not terrible, but just doesn't do it for me, and I think I'm supposed to like it. And so, I have been there. I imagine everyone has been there. I imagine you have been there.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not just crossing someone's boundaries, it's just not trusting your body enough, or knowing your body enough to know what feels wonderful, and to trust that, oh my gosh, it matters. Like, what I want matters. How did that happen? So in working with people around sexuality, this has come up a lot, almost all the time.
Yeah, like we're talking about before we recorded, that when we were at our lowest and Katrine couldn't feel anything, like she had no impulse of anything. And for me, and I know for many other men, I'm not saying all men, we seek our connection through physical intimacy, through sex. So I wanted to have the connection that I had with Katrine from before we were in that deep dark place, and I was seeking it through sex, and she let me. And that was a violation, both for her, because she had no touch, she was not in touch with her body, but it was also it violated something in me as well, being that perpetrator. And it was extremely uncomfortable and sad, but I didn't know how else to get my wife back, you know. And that all changed when she started coming back, like she started doing things for herself that filled her up, so that she came into her body again, and then she could start feeling like, do I want this or do I not want this, and say no. And
and presumably you were coming back more into your body so that you would notice that there are ways to connect that aren't sex. Because there are in fact ways to connect that aren't sex. And I think that's a really common thing, particularly for men, although sometimes for women, but I think it's really common for men because men, for the most part, are not allowed to be close to each other. So you can't get the kind of warmth and intimacy and affection from each other. And so we have human needs for connection, for warmth, for intimacy, for affirmation, for play, for pleasure. And if you don't realize that there are lots of ways to meet those needs, they all get funneled into sex. So your sex is not really about sex either. Your sex becomes, how can I feel seen and heard and affirmed and have some affection? And those needs are not about sex. Those needs are about affirmation and connection. And so if you don't know how to meet them, you're going to bring them all into sex, which is way too big of a burden to put on sex. Put in a relationship.
That is a really, really good point.
That was an eye-opener.
That's an eye-opener,
And it's very common.
Some years ago, we went to Turkey, and as I remember it, many men hold each other's hands when they walked around. And that's we don't do that in Denmark.
Same here. Don't do it in the US unless you want to get beat up. Which is really a terrible loss. Women seem to have it a little easier in that regard. In most places, but
But I've also noticed, like when we do, I haven't done that much like men's work, like in men's groups, but I have done some. And like when one of the things that is worked a lot on is like allowing to experience like anger, the power of that masculine force, and then being met by other men and being accepted in that. And that brings a lot of like life force and vitality out. Where it doesn't become destructive, but where it just becomes this power, but that also has that connection. And we really need to be seen by other men. And it's very difficult in these times to find that anywhere. Like way back when we were all farmers, like 150 years ago, like all men would be out in the field working with their uncles and cousins, and like they would be pushing around hay bales and raising a barn and using that power together and connecting through that. And we are lacking that.
I would say that anger, of course, needs to be expressed and accepted, and also so do fear and grief and joy. That
it all happens in the body.
It all happens in the body, and life would be very pale without emotional richness. And we need to accept that in ourselves and in each other.
What is the wheel of consent?
The wheel of consent
Could you
Yeah.
boil your whole
yeah, there's
book and all
that.
your life into like 2 minutes or 5?
Yeah. The wheel of consent is a practice in taking, receiving, and giving apart, so that when it's my turn to receive a gift, I put myself first and you take care of you. When it's time, I respect your limits, but you take care of you. And when it's my turn to give you a gift, then you put your desires first and respect my limits. And it's my job to also respect my limits, and I take care of myself. So by taking turns, essentially, you have, when you're either completely receiving a gift or completely giving a gift, you have experiences that are possible no other way. No other way. When I am the receiver of your attention, I can have experiences that I will never have if I'm also trying to give back.
Yeah.
So it's a practice in taking turns. And it's also a practice in noticing that there's 2 different kinds of gifts here. It was developed using touch, and it's best learned with touch because it's a somatic experience. But for people who are not touching, it can also be learned. But so if I ask you, for example, will you rub my back? And then that's for me. You're rubbing the back the way I want, not the way you want, but the way I want, because it's for me. It's my turn. So that's one dynamic. And then, of course, we can reverse that. And then there's a different dynamic in which I say, may I feel your back? Or may I play with your hair? Or may I explore your ears? Or may I play with your feet? Or I'm playing with you the way I want. Not the way you want, the way I want. So it's the difference between my hand can be going down your back, but is it because I want it or because you want it? Is it the way I want it or is it the way you want it? And noticing that there's a difference there, and it's a very significant difference. So in the first one, like I'm giving you a massage, for example, and you have asked, do this, and okay, I'm doing that. It's for you. And you get up and you say, thank you. The gift that I'm giving you there is my action and my time and attention. I'm giving you my action, my hands. And then I say, may I play with your feet, or may I explore your legs? So now or maybe may I explore your back? So now my hands are on your back again, but this time it's for me. And the gift that you are giving me is your body. It's access to your body. It's a very important kind of a gift, and it's a different gift, but it's a significant gift. You're giving me access to you in a way that I want, and still respecting your boundaries, so that you become my toy or my plaything or what I can explore. So the wheel, you can look it up on YouTube or on my website, and you'll see that it's the 4 quadrants. I'm doing what I want, or I'm doing what you want, or you're doing what I want, or you're doing what you want. And there's lots of explanation there, and there's a bunch of free videos you can go see.
Yeah, it's gonna be linked in the email that goes out.
Yeah.
We make sure
But
that
it's essentially, it's a practice in taking turns, because you have experiences that are possible.
Det er første gang, det sker.
Ja, det er meget godt.
Ja. Det var det samme.
Where did we leave off? You froze and then you disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you froze and disappeared.
Disappeared. Okay, yes, I froze, disappeared. Where did we break off?
Oh,
We had just talked about it being like the four quadrants,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start there and we'll
yeah,
overlap. But
I'll just cut it. I'll edit it together.
So yeah, you end up with 4 quadrants when you divide it up by who's doing and who's giving or receiving. I do what I want, or I do what you want, and you do what you want, and you do what I want. So there's 4 different combinations. So when I say it's a practice, I mean that it doesn't replace your life. Every interaction does not need to fit into a strictly receiving and giving. Thank goodness. But as a practice, you go into it and you take those apart. So you're doing only one of them at a time. You have experiences you can't have any other way. You learn about what it means to receive without trying to give something back at the same time. That's life-changing.
Yeah.
You learn what it's like to give without trying to sneak something back at the same time, and that is life-changing. And then you take that into your life however you do. But it doesn't mean, and some people when they start learning it, they think, well, everything has to fit. No, it doesn't. There are times when you're just hanging out together and enjoying each other that are not this gift giving. Yeah.
yeah.
But that makes it very clear, because like most of the time in our interactions, like it's all muddled together somehow.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when you do something like that, you can become aware. Then when you then go back to the muddled situations, like, okay, what is actually going on right now?
Yes.
Like, and
Exactly.
why am I doing this conditional thing? Why am I
Yes.
trying to like do this underhand thing? Because you need to see your own processes in this. Sounds like a really important work you're doing with this.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. You start to notice, oh, wait a minute. Am I trying to get something back here without admitting that that's what I want? Or am I trying to give something here when it's not what the other person actually wants? And what am I trying? Why am I doing that? And what am I trying to get back?
Yeah.
And who is this actually for? Yeah. So a lot of things become clear. It really becomes a life practice.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you just saw, head on over to whoselifeisitsummit.com/podcast, where you can find full-length episodes as well as in audio format, and we do a lot of other cool stuff. You can hang out with us and other like-minded individuals who want to create a world that works for everyone, and we do that on our platform where we can chat, and we have Q&As and exclusive interviews as well. So there's so much to get over there. So come on over and play with us.